All right. It is Friday, December 15th, 2023. Um, it's my first Friday back from retreat and my last Friday for a while, except for Spirit Rock. Um, 10 days from Christmas, I put up Christmas lights on the trees out front of the house today. That was my one gesture. Um, so we will sit for 20 minutes and then I will talk for a little while about the Dharma. And actually, it's going to be really a very much meditation uh, focused topic tonight. So settling back into your meditation posture, whatever is comfortable and supports you being awake and aware and relaxed. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. And beginning by just turning the attention inward and feeling the body at rest, feeling the movement of breath in the body. So I've been working a lot with breath, and one thing that can help to start a sitting and establish your mindfulness is to follow a few breaths from start to finish. Just making a little extra effort, pointing the attention, sustaining the attention on the breath for the entire in-breath and out-breath cycle. And then allowing the awareness just to open to include the whole body. So you're feeling the breath and feeling the body. And allowing the natural settling and calming of the body with the breath. Thoughts may come and go, just not attaching to them, letting them just come through the awareness. And just sustaining awareness with the movement of breath, the touch breath. However you can be aware of breathing. And we can call this initial aspect of practice the grounding or arriving with the simple experience of breath and body. It's helpful then to connect with the felt experience, the mood or emotional energy, however subtle or obvious that might be, and holding that with the breath and body. If there's a strong feeling, either strongly pleasant or strongly unpleasant, to let that become the primary focus while still maintaining peripheral awareness of the breath. Just with a quality of ease, not efforting or striving, just feeling the breath, body, feelings. And if you like, you can open into a broader awareness. Here we are seeing the of context in which all this is happening in the space of awareness. So we're looking really at the mind itself, which contains these experiences, breath, body, and feelings, but is not made of them. This view of spaciousness then helps us to not be caught too much in any particular experience or thought or feeling. We see it all happening in this field of awareness. one of the perils of going on a long retreat and then teaching afterwards is that I'm like, okay, just settle into the vast space of mind, the emptiness. Okay. People are like, oh, what? Dude, like, I'm like, oh, it's not vast and empty for you right now. What's wrong? So yeah, that's definitely a benefit of practicing. It doesn't last though. It turns out it's impermanent. I'm getting a message from Julie asking about. I did not know you would no longer be teaching Fridays. Do you want to say more? Who will be teaching? So I haven't really been saying this. I think I said something about it on Tuesday, but it's really, Angela and I were talking about it a while back, and I just decided, like, it's just, I'd rather not have two weekly commitments on Zoom. And as I said, Friday nights it's like the weekend, it's sort of like around the household. And so that's primarily what's going on. Who will be teaching? I kind of, I've, Angela, Debbie and Anne are aware of this, and I guess if they are free, and Angela, you've kind of said that you will sort of be here, and Angela is in the mindfulness teacher training, so she might do a little guiding of things and bringing in some topics and facilitating. So I'm just kind of like saying the community can carry on, not to depend on the great guru. And maybe it turns into more of a meeting, like more of a sharing. I'm sure people will still want to sit for a while, and then so that's that. Hope that helps. So what I want to talk about, and this might carry on until Tuesday as well, because this is sort of a broad topic. So I want to talk about using intentional thinking kind of concepts in your meditation, rather than just trying to be like have complete silence. I'll actually read this piece. This is from my book in progress on the Anapanasati Sutta. Meditation is often misunderstood to be an effort to stop thinking. Meditation teachers like me spend a fair amount of time trying to disabuse students of this notion. While discursive, intrusive, habitual, repetitive, and obsessive thoughts are clearly a block to mindfulness, the skillful use of words and thoughts is an important tool in the practice. In the Majjhima Nikaya number 20, the removal of distracting thoughts, the Buddha says that one who follows the instructions he's laid out in that sutta will, quote, become a master of the courses of thought. So he doesn't say you'll stop thinking, but rather that you won't get stuck in unwholesome or unproductive thoughts. You'll only think what you want to think. Many practices use thoughts, from mantras and the gathas of Thich Nhat Hanh to the noting practice of Mahasi Sayadaw or the reflective phrases of loving kindness meditation. Thoughts are a part of many forms of meditation. The key is to use them wisely and discreetly. If you are just numbly repeating a mantra or ritually reciting words of loving kindness, you're not mastering your thoughts. We need mindfulness to guide us. As we pay attention to the unfolding of our experience over time, we will learn when it is helpful to drop in some words and when it is best to let go. Here there are no hard and fast rules. We must depend on our growing awareness and intuition. We become creative and responsive in our practice. I want to, there's more there, but let me read a little bit of Ajahn Pasno, and this is his book about loving kindness. And so he's referring to the loving kindness meditation, but it's just as applicable to a breath or other kind of meditation. He says, in meditation, when we are trying to calm and still the mind, I think it's a common tendency to try to eliminate thinking and get rid of the thinking mind. A common equation comes up. I think, therefore I suffer. If I didn't think, I wouldn't suffer. Buddhism is for the overcoming of suffering, so I must annihilate thinking. That was in quotes. Usually what happens then is either the thinking explodes or we tie ourselves into knots trying not to think. We might be quite successful in pushing down and suppressing thought, but it never feels very good. Directing thoughts to loving kindness is a skillful way excuse me, of using and applying thought in a way that allows the mind to build the momentum of skillfulness and wholesomeness. The thoughts are increasingly on the side of that which is kusala, that's wholesome. The very nature of that kusala citta, wholesome mind, is that it's peaceful, settled, and has a steady quality to it. Further on in this chapter, in case this is from his book Abundant, Exalted, Immeasurable, and the chapter is called Skillful Thinking in Meditation. Thoughts are there to help as reminders. Underlying them is the particular feeling of spaciousness and warmth in the mind and heart. Allow that to establish itself through the body, directing it toward yourself. The mind is able to keep guarding the sustained application of the thoughts or feelings of loving kindness. So what he's getting at, and there's another reading from Analayo that I'll give you, is so in something like the loving kindness meditation, you say the words, but you don't just kind of keep repeating the words. You say the words, and then you're trying to evoke the feeling of loving kindness, right? Because the feeling of loving kindness is really loving kindness, if you will. The words are not loving kindness. If I'm just sitting here going, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be... It's not loving kindness. I mean, it's, at least it's not hatred. It's not negative, but it's not metta. It's not embodied. And he mentions the body. It needs to be embodied. So in general terms, the way I use thoughts is that I drop in some words that are meant to evoke a feeling. And it's interesting. I mean, I do this with the Anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing, as well. There are 16 steps in the Anapanasati practice, and each of them has like a one or two words. I guess always two words. Experiencing the body, calming the body, experiencing the mind, calming the mind, these kind of things. And I will just say, calming the body to myself when I'm at that point in the practice. Like I try to work through the 16 steps generally. But I won't just keep repeating that. I'll just say that as kind of a cue to the mind. And what you do then is then we call it inclining the mind. It's like, okay, that's where I'm trying to go. You're not pushing or grabbing, but you're pointing. You're inclining toward it. And then there's this acceptance, right? Where does your mind go? Like sometimes it goes there, and sometimes it just goes off, or it falls asleep. So it's not that you're going to be like, I'm going to make myself calm the mind, I'm doing. It's just that you kind of see, is it available? That's kind of my attitude when I'm doing that. Is loving kindness available to me right now? Is concentration, is calming of the body available? Is this thing available? And the way I find out if it's available is I'm sitting and I just drop in those words, and then I see what arises. Now, this is largely dependent upon the level of concentration that you have, right? So I did this 6-week retreat, the first week, I I really barely got to the first step of the Anapanasati Sutta because I was just falling asleep. And so my main before they even give instructions about breath, the Buddha says, setting the body erect, putting mindfulness to the fore, ever mindful we breathe in, ever mindful we breathe out. So that's before he even starts the process. And I would be sitting there nodding and like opening my eyes and holding myself up. And I would just sometimes just say to myself, setting the body erect. And I would just like, and this is where I am. And it's like, it's, I think a really key aspect of meditation is to not get frustrated with where you are, just to hang out. And of course, you can do that if you have faith in the practice, and you develop faith in the practice when you practice a lot, right? So I've been on enough retreats that I know like sleepiness is normal, but if I keep sitting, it's going to break. And if I just decide, oh, I'm going to go to bed and sleep till for the first week, it's, I'm not going to get anywhere. So, you just keep sitting with it. You keep sitting with it, and eventually, oh, it opens up, right? So yeah, so there's this balance between kind of an effort and then accepting where you are and seeing where you are. And oftentimes, particularly in the sort of middle beginning of the retreat, of the 6-week retreat, maybe around the second week, I'd be sitting and I'd be getting settled, but I wouldn't be intentionally trying to move through the sutta because I was just kind of getting settled. And then I would kind of like come to like realize, oh, wait, I'm in this particular space. So the second tetrad, there's 4 tetrads, 4 steps in each tetrad, so 16 altogether. So the second tetrad includes this step of just feeling sukha, which is like a kind of a warm, calm, pleasant feeling. They say happiness, but for me, that's not quite how it manifests. Anyway, there were times when I would be sitting and I would just go, oh, wow, I've settled into sukha. So and here it's like, what I discovered, I'm digressing, but you guys know me enough to know that that's pretty much all I ever do. What I discovered is that this Anapanasati practice is not a prescription for meditation. It's a description. It describes what happens if you just sit and follow the breath. There's a natural progression that happens. And the Anapanasati helps you to kind of see where you are and then become a little bit more intentional about moving through that progression, that natural progression. So it starts with body, and you connect with the breath and then the awareness of the body, and then calming the body. Then it moves into the feeling realm, and you connect with that, with the breath, which is very natural, right? When you meditate, once you're kind of established in the breath, there's this natural kind of like connecting to something deeper and more subtle. And then it opens up. My guided meditation tonight was basically the first 3 tetrads. It opens up to mind. And the third tetrad is like, oh, the body and the feelings are all happening in mind, which is a kind of a more spacious thing. It's mind itself doesn't have any qualities. This is how I would describe it. It's just kind of like a blank slate, and in the breath and the feelings are in there, bringing a texture. But when you focus on mind, you see that there is this bigger space, this blank slate that's holding them. So as I'm saying, going back to this, the original topic, like I'll just drop in, some of the words from the Anapanasati Sutta when I'm doing that. So I'll just go like experiencing the whole body, and I'll move then from, I'll start with just the breath, and then at a certain point when I start to feel a little settled, I'll be like experiencing the whole body. and then I'll just bring attention to my whole body, right? I'm giving myself instruction, and then calming the body. And then I'll see, like, well, that's a very natural thing to do. If you're mindful of the breath and the body, there's a natural calming, and so you're sort of allowing that to happen. So, you know, I mean, in a way, this isn't like news to anyone. Oh, yeah, we use words in meditation. But it's helpful, I think, to realize, no, do that very intentionally and find words that work for you. And it can be a mantra, or it can be like Thich Nhat Hanh's gathas, where you continue to repeat words. I've done that for several years. That was my main practice, where I was continually repeating words with the breath. But the key thing is that the words are never the dominant part of the experience. They're always kind of a background element that's more, as I say, kind of setting you up, or kind of priming you to be in these states. So when you do the gathas, Thich Nhat Hanh's gathas are in, out, deep, slow, calm, ease, smile, release, present moment, wonderful moment. And when I would repeat those, the words themselves have these pleasant kind of connotations, and there's pleasant feelings to them. They're almost poetic. And they're kind of going, but I'm feeling the breath, and they're going with the breath. And there's a natural calming and ease and release that kind of happens through that. You're not like trying to make those things happen. You're just letting them be there. Yeah, I just thought this was an interesting, aspect of practice that we don't talk about very much. I'll read a little bit of Analayo, who talks about this in relation to the Anapanasati. And here he's talking about the beginning of the 16 steps. The first two are to understand the long breath and to understand the short breath. It says, employing the distinction between long and short breaths, as well as other aspects cultivated during the remaining steps, requires the judicious use of concepts. These are best relied on only to the degree to which they support clarity during actual practice. We might briefly formulate the relevant concept explicitly in our mind, and then rest in the resulting experience without continuing to employ concepts. In the case of gauging the length of the breath, we might simply note long, and then observe for a while until we feel time has come to note short. In the case of other tasks to be performed with subsequent steps, we might arouse the relevant concept in relation to one cycle of inhalation and exhalation, and then remain with the resultant experience for another 2, 3, or more cycles. In this way, the benefit of the use of concepts can be reaped without risking that we end up just mentally fabricating experience, right? Like, oh, I'm just saying these words, and I'm like, yeah. The amount of time spent just observing after the initial input made by the use of whatever concept is relevant to a particular step can be adjusted according to the degree of collectedness of our mind. If the mind is rather scattered, it can be preferable to keep bringing in concepts at shorter intervals in order to counter the tendency to distraction. Once the mind is more settled, however, progress through the 16 steps can involve longer periods of just resting in the experience of each step, savoring the particular characteristic that has emerged fully due to the initial and brief conceptual input. With the ongoing practice of the 16 steps, the sequence will become ever more familiar until it eventually becomes so ingrained and natural that hardly any intentional conceptual input is needed for proceeding from one step to the next. So that kind of, in his very formal language, captures what I'm saying, and the judicious use and the kind of dropping it in and then seeing what the result is and then resting with that, however long that seems helpful. So you can see as I talk about that particular in the Anapanasati that I'm getting pretty wrapped up in this particular practice. I spent 6 weeks doing this, many hours each day, and to different degrees. Sometimes I would back off a little bit and not sort of try to be intentionally going through it, and then I would do some periods of loving kindness. But mostly I was doing this practice, and I'm really like sold on it. that it's really valuable to learn these 16 steps, and I'm going to be teaching this more and more as this book comes into fruition, and encouraging people to learn these 16 steps and learn to take yourselves through the practice of yourself without having to have guidance necessarily. Because as I say, it's not really like something new. Like when I realized maybe halfway through this retreat that I wasn't experiencing anything through the Anapanasati practice that I hadn't experienced before, that I haven't experienced many times over the decades of practice. It was just that I could see it as a whole system now. Whereas, in the past, I think I tended to have like different experiences that I didn't necessarily like connect together and see how to connect them together, how they connected together, and then how to the fourth tetrad, is the one that's about insight, and it's about essentially impermanence and letting go. And I developed, because this was the big challenge for me as I was writing the book, was how to write about that tetrad. And so on the retreat, I developed my own way of going through that tetrad, which, I'll share at some point. But it's very much using concepts. But if you've worked through the first three tetrads and you've gone through these 12 steps, you're concentrated enough that the concepts really don't disturb your mind at all. They really take you into this place. There's some words the Buddha describes. It applies to the jhanas, to the meditative absorptions, but it's true of just any concentrated state, that he says that the mind becomes malleable and wieldy. And what that means, malleable, is something that's easily shaped and formed, right? Wieldy, when I first heard that word, I was like, wieldy, I don't really know what that is, but I know what the word unwieldy is. It's like some big, you're trying to carry a mattress or something, it's unwieldy. Oh, if it's wieldy, then it's something you can easily carry or manipulate. So what I realized in doing those absorption practices is that when you get into those states, your mind becomes very suggestible. And this is probably how hypnosis works, actually, because it's so there's a risk in those states, and it's why you want to have the Buddha be your guide, and do what the Buddha says. And so in that state, when you get to those concentrated states, your mind will easily find these places that you direct it to. And so it's malleable. So when you start to talk about, contemplating impermanence, and you're in a very concentrated state, the mind, you can do it in a way that's very effective and very impactful. So I have somewhat gone off the topic of using concepts, but no, I'm still talking about that. But this is, I think, a valuable reflection and an important one to see how we can do that very carefully and judiciously, as Venerable Analayo would say. So I thank you for your attention, and we have some time left. If there are any comments or questions, happy to engage, I hope. I mean, I hope that there are questions. I am happy to engage. I don't hope that I'm happy to engage. My syntax was a little off there.
Yeah, hi, Kevin.
Oh, hi, Mike.
What you were saying about using words kind of conceptually and not having them in the forefront but in the background, that's kind of what I've come to too, where it's like I use Thich Nhat Hanh's Gatha, the in out deep slow a lot too, but I used it a lot when I first started, but now I use it sparingly and I'll probably only go through it like once.
Uh-huh.
I'll take time between, each one and a couple
Mm-hmm.
of breaths and so yeah, found that interesting that we've kind of come to that same conclusion. And I still, could you talk a little bit more about the fourth tetrad? I mean, I feel like
Sure.
this was, you took a deep dive here, and I'm curious about if there was any more you wanted to talk about, or
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what I've been doing with it. So, so the fourth tetrad says, breathing in, breathing out, contemplating impermanence, breathing in, breathing out, contemplating fading away, breathing in, breathing out, contemplating cessation, breathing in, breathing out, contemplating letting go. And so, what I've started to do with it, I have a couple methods, but my main method is that I'll say to myself, contemplating impermanence, and then I'll just take my attention into my body. And I will be aware of in this present moment, the impermanent nature of my body. I'll feel that I'm breathing, feel my heart beating, I'll feel the energy in the body, and I'll just kind of acknowledge that to myself. The body is impermanent. And then I go to feeling. So basically what I do is I go back through the first three tetrads and use body, feeling, and mind as areas of reflection on impermanence. Excuse me. So then I'll go, feeling is impermanent, and then I'll kind of feel what I'm feeling, and at the same time I might and then I'll do the same with mind, like what's mind right now. Now the secondary thing that I do is I will reflect further, like on body, and like reflect on the aging of my body. So that's more thought than it is just feeling it. And the same with feeling. I'll just acknowledge, wow, feeling is like, what was I feeling this morning? I kind of just noticed that. And same with mind. So then the second, Analio has this brilliant insight that that impermanence, fading away, and cessation actually parallel anicca and dukkha and anatta. That is, impermanence, uh, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. So I kind of use those. So when I get to um, contemplating fading away, I'll just reflect on the unsatisfactoriness of the body, the unsatisfactoriness of feeling, the unsatisfactoriness of mind. That none of those things, because they are impermanent, none of them can ever arrive at some permanent solution or resolution. They're unsatisfactory. And then contemplating cessation. Then we're looking at, oh, because this body is impermanent and it's not satisfactory, it's not fit, as the Buddha says, it's not fit to be called self. Feelings are not fit to be called self. Mind is not fit to be called self. So here it's really much more reflective than it is typically meditative. But as I say, if the mind is concentrated, those reflections are very impactful. It's not just you're thinking them. There's a real, like, you're really feeling it, like, whew, this is really true. And then, you know, um, contemplating letting go. It's kind of like realizing, oh, impermanent, not satisfactory, not self, there's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing in body to hold on to, no feeling to hold on to, no mental state to hold on to. So just let it go. So that's how I move through them. And I will often, but I don't like to end my meditation there. So what I usually do is I kind of go back to the third tetrad, concentrating the mind, and I just rest in a deep, quiet space for a while, and then I ring the bell. Okay?
Yeah, wow, that sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
Did it take a couple of weeks to really kind of get into that, or?
Yeah. It took me. The settling in was very difficult for a variety of reasons, including the fact that it was 3 hour time difference and they were getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that basically meant I was getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so the first week there was a lot of fatigue, and then there were a lot, I'm on retreats, like, I don't know, the teachers, everything is annoying me. I'm so aversive. So it took me a while to settle in. And it also, like, I was anxious. Like, I hadn't sat a retreat that long in 30 years and 40 years. And I just felt like, oh my God, like, can I handle this? So that kind of, you know, so it did take a couple weeks before I really arrived at where I settled. Uh, but I had done enough work with the Anapanasati and read it and studied it and written about it enough that once I got concentrated on the retreat, I was able to really dig in, and get a lot out of it. It was very productive in that regard. So I've gone back, since I've been back, I've been rewriting, just adding things to the book, and I'm adding more practice instructions to it, and then some of these insights. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks. I really liked what you said about it being the description of kind of what you naturally go through. I thought that was a good way to talk about it. And so I wanted to say thanks for all the Fridays, and kind of sad this is the last one with you, but thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Mike. And of course, I'm still doing Spirit Rock once a month, so that's always a Friday. So thank you. Um, Eleanor.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Um, Thank you so much for touching on the topic of concentration as you were talking about what you were engaged in, because I've been fussing about concentration in my meditation recently and kind of um, in 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 the interest of not putting too much effort into it, I've been just noticing that I have precious little concentration and wondering about ways to bring that back to the fore, watching how my mind is so discursive and just not settled. I do meditation each morning, and some days, of course, are more concentrated than others, but I really appreciated the way you highlighted how a practice like this that includes skillful thought can aid in um, can have the benefit of increasing access to concentration. I think
Yeah.
that's attractive to me. That seems like a skillful way for me to be moving forward. So
Good.
I'll look forward to you talking more about that.
And I have to say that I've I'm actually more interested in tranquility
Yeah.
in a way
Okay.
than I am in concentration. And so
Mhm.
when you and there's kind of a process, in the factors of enlightenment, and when the Buddha talks about kind of the progression, tranquility comes before concentration.
Mhm.
And I have to admit that recently I've sort of asked myself, do I know the difference between
Mhm.
tranquility and concentration?
Mhm.
I'm not sure I do. Um, I, 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 I think that for me, I'm much more inclined to tranquility because I think concentration generally probably applies to more of a one-pointedness that I
Mhm.
don't usually attain. I usually sit in this more spacious place, and sometimes it does really lock down. And I'm like, oh, like this is like really, this is definitely samadhi here. But much of the time, it's just that like I feel good. I
Yeah.
feel nice, and it's very much physical to me. The cues that let me know that I'm getting to a place like that are not mental. It's not that all of a sudden everything gets quiet in my head. It's that everything gets quiet in my body, and there's just like the edge goes off, and it's like, oh, this is nice,
Yeah.
and I feel like I've gained like 10 pounds. It just feels like the body is heavier. It's the which you would call the earth element, right? In traditional Buddhism, it's like, which is what it is. I mean, it's perception of the earth element becomes stronger, and I won't try to explain. I don't know why. I could make something up because I'm pretty good at that, but I'll just say that that's what it is. There's a perception of a settling.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm aware of a physical sensation when what I call concentration is present, but I can see that the term tranquility would be equally salient in that moment of what that physiological sense is in my body. So yeah, and
And
it's fleeting is the thing, it's
yeah, of
not,
course,
I
right.
don't I don't stay there. Right.
I think breathing into the belly
Mhm.
is and trying to release through the belly is a
Mhm.
good way to go at that,
Mhm.
because that's where I think that tension, that agitation sits so much of the time.
Mhm.
And so if I can kind of release through the belly and the solar plexus, but yeah, I mean, there's no real substitute for retreat practice. We kind
Yeah.
of know that, sadly. If somebody could come up, I mean, there's pills, there's drugs you can take, but if if somebody could come up with a meditation practice that accelerated the process of getting concentrated, they would be very popular.
Mhm. Thank you. And thank you also for these years of building this community. It's
Yeah,
just been uh, um, boundlessly beneficial to me. Thank you.
now I'm feeling guilty. Jeez, you
Don't
guys,
feel guilty. No, no, that I didn't mean you to feel guilty. It's just like
it's my problem.
while you've been away, maybe I'm not the only one that's had a chance to think about the impermanent nature of this connection that we have right now,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the reality that this has been hugely beneficial, and that doesn't mean it's going to last forever. That doesn't mean it's
right.
going to stay this way, and that's totally okay. It's
And there's other
totally
things that can happen.
if then other things can happen.
Creating a vacuum, where something
Right?
else will come in.
Yeah, yeah,
Thanks, Eleanor. Well, I love you, and I really appreciate. Were you with us on Tuesday?
yeah. I was
Yeah,
very
and
touched by the
you
tenderness.
were you were one of those faces
Yeah.
that I was thinking about when I needed to feel loved on that retreat.
Oh, bless you.
Absolutely, and I just really, I just, it's a very we have a very simple relationship, which is very pure. So thank
Thank you.
you.
I appreciate that. Much gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. You're coming in February to the retreat?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Julie, I see you've got your hand up in a manner of speaking.
Hello, Sangha. I know we're a little bit late, so I'll try to be brief,
Oh,
though
yeah,
that
we
is
are.
not my strong suit. I also want to chime in. Thank you for all these years of Fridays and Tuesdays and your offerings. Um, and in your 6 week absence, that those people who stepped in for you, Angela, Monica, Debbie, Anne, and then your guest teachers, Greg, etc. Wonderful. They were very,
Yeah.
very wonderful.
Yeah.
I look forward to that practice with them. And I am really hit with sadness. I am really hit with sadness. Um, so glad you shared, because had I tuned in next Friday only to find out that you would not be here, it would have been a little bit more shocking. So I wish you well on your long weekends, and I honor that you're doing that. I loved tonight's offering. I get very tangled in words. I
Yeah.
think it's really important for me to understand when words are useful, beneficial, helpful, lead to pathways of skillfulness, and when they can be used not skillfully,
Yeah.
whether it's just for rote or numb, or to put a layer between myself and direct experience. Having said that, I am going to take a risk tonight and refer to something that you said before 7 o'clock. And you did nothing wrong. You told the truth, and I appreciated that, and it hurts. And I'll just refer, when you said on retreat, a very benign statement,
Oh, yeah.
that you noticed that there seemed to be a lot of dysfunctional eaters, or people who had dysfunctional relationships with their food. You noticed that. You made that observation on retreat. So I will just say, because I am a food addict, not recovered, I'll just speak for myself, but I'm very tempted to say we food addicts are very, very aware that how we eat is being observed.
Mm. Yeah.
Whether it's because, if I can just say a few more words,
Sure.
whether it's we're restricting, or I'm restricting, or I'm eating a mountain of food, whether it's I'm weighing 76 pounds and people don't know where I put that turkey dinner, or I'm heavy and people are like, oh my God, no wonder why she's heavy, look at her. And even my OA friends will comment on other, if they go out in a group, they will comment to me. I mean, I know people do this. We comment on how other people eat. And though you were just making an observation, and what you said was not hurtful per se, it really, really is so painful. And that is why I and a lot of overeaters, or food addicts, compulsive eaters, or restrictors, we tend to isolate and we eat in private, because we know that people are watching and observing whether they say anything or not. And it hurts. It is so painful, because truth hurts sometimes. So I'm not asking you not to have said that. I don't wish you hadn't have said that. You didn't do anything wrong. It was a very benign statement, but wow, I felt it
Yeah.
big time. So thank you for giving me
Yeah.
the same.
Thanks,
that.
Julie. You know, yeah, and I mean, I appreciate being educated, frankly, because I'm not a food addict, and over the years, I feel like I've learned a lot about it, but there's always gaps. And I will say that I only, my sense of what was going on there was not people that were aware of what they were doing. In fact, that a lot of the people, they were probably not, it's not even that they were food addicts or that they even had issues with food. It's just that it amazes me that on a meditation retreat where people are being taught to, and you know, that's supposed to be about letting go, that ordinary people get obsessed with this one activity. And I'm like, you know, you're meditating and you're listening to Dharma talks, and then when you walk into the dining hall, you forget all about it. And it's really not. Some of them could be, but most of them, I think, are just people who are very unconscious about food, and it is such a powerful drug. I mean, and it really shows, because it's the only real opportunity for sense pleasure other than going out and looking at the sunset or something on a retreat. And people can't let go. Not only can they not let go, they don't even realize that they're attached, you know. So you are way more advanced than most of these people, because you understand that you have an addiction, and you work with it. And I know how painful. I don't know, but I have a sense of how painful it is, and I hear how painful it is for you, and for that I can only have compassion, because my little, compulsions are painful enough. And when it's and I know, I mean, we don't choose these things, sex addicts, food addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics. None of us choose to be these things. And yeah, I mean, I'm a fucking judgmental person, and that comes out of my mouth a lot, And so, but the bottom line, the truth is, I understand, and I do have compassion around this. But again, I do appreciate you, and I really appreciate your sensitivity in how you framed that, saying that I didn't do anything wrong, but just educating me. So thank you, dear. It's been lovely having you with us too. Chris, man, I mean, I just love the room there. Is that real, or is that a virtual? Can you unmute? Yeah, there you go. You seem frozen though. Maybe try going off video, just to take up less.
Work.
We're not hearing you. I'm sorry, I can't. I see, the Beatles song. Your lips are moving. I forget what the line is, but I can see you trying to talk, but I'm sorry that we can't hear
He's still muted. I think that's why.
you. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Testing. Having some difficulties with my computer, apparently. Sorry about that. It was probably weirder for you guys to watch that.
Now we hear you.
Yeah, no, this is just some of my artwork, and this is real. This is my room.
Awesome. Nice. That's great.
It's very me, I guess. I make things the way I like them, whatever. But I'm very creative. I do a lot of different stuff. But anyway, to off what she was just saying, like there's a lot of stuff I've done by myself, like on purpose, because I didn't want anyone to see me. Like, I think everyone probably has shared that type of experience, especially if you're like addicted to anything in your life. It's usually you end up by yourself, doing in a room, and then it's like the next few things are like, what the hell am I even doing here? And then like, how did I get here? It's like, how do I get out of here? So definitely feel you on that, and it's good to be able to recognize and address like triggers in oneself, or things that make you bring something up in you, and seeking out about it. Also, it's like another A plus, because then it's just reinforcing your intention to like overcome this, and even being here in this group itself is another. Speaking of intentions, as Kevin was, proof of that. So yeah, it's I found that people that tend to have addictive natures feel a lot of stuff. They usually have like a super high emotional intelligence, or at least capacity for like feeling emotions more than some other types of people. Not that no one does, but
Yeah.
there's just different types of people, and some people have lower actual like emotional thresholds that they deal with. And,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, so I also wanted to say to you, Kevin, since it's actually the first time that we're meeting, unfortunately it was here last Friday, so I had to be like that, but I did start while you were in your retreat, and these guys did a great job carrying on in your absence, and I'm actually looking forward to that continuing. So
Good.
I like what you had to say. It made sense to me, and everything just makes practical sense. It goes together quite well, and gave me a good feel for it, even though I haven't done the practice itself. So just wanted to say that, everyone, especially you, and thank you. And hang in there, everyone. It gets worse and then gets better. Probably worse first.
There you go. Thanks,
But then
Chris. All right, folks. Well, I will dedicate the merit of our practice together over these years to the awakening of all beings, and may all beings be free of the suffering of addiction. May all beings be happy, peaceful, and safe. Thank you.